So excited to have Emily here. Emily, how are you doing?
I am well, and we're also joined by Catherine Boatwright from National VOED today. So we're so excited that she can be joining us.
Yeah,
And if it's
thank
all
you
right, I can
so
go ahead
much,
and
Catherine. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. So I just to give everyone a little bit of context. So Emily is joining us from Elevation Web. So they do a lot of things for organizations, including web design, and they're going to be talking a little bit about how to make your website basically just more engaging for your donors and help you get more clicks, more interactions going on. So I'm so excited to have Emily here, who runs content and communications over at Elevation Web, and then Catherine joining us from VOAD as well. So I'll turn it over to you and let you take it from here to dive into a little bit more about yourselves and then our presentation. So thank you so much for joining us and being part of the summit. Really appreciate it.
fantastic. We're very excited to be here. So I'm switching over now to our presentation. So welcome to Make Your Website Work for Your Community. I'll just minimize that. How UX attracts more supporters and donors with National VOED and Elevation. And we have a quick poll. I'm wondering if we could launch that real quick to kind of learn a little bit more about you and make sure that this presentation addresses your needs and your concerns. So I'm not sure if Candace were able to launch that.
There we go.
Perfect.
That should be launched.
All right, so I'll give folks just a few seconds to respond. And that way we can sort of address tips that may help you.
Yeah, I love the polls because you just get a good sense of like who's in the community and how to speak to that. And so I think this is great. A lot of responses coming in.
Yes. And also I think it's great for everyone who's attending today because you also get a little bit of a chance to learn where other people are at. And that can be helpful as well. I do realize I'm not sure how to view the results of the poll as the host, I have to confess. So I don't know if you can see those, Candace, and maybe share, and you know, once we have a significant number, we can share the results and then take that with us.
Yeah, we have about 250 responses and still climbing. So we'll give people a few more minutes, or not minutes, but a few more seconds to get their responses in. And then when I share it, everyone will be able to see the results, including you as well. So then you'll be able to get a sense. But as it goes now, it's looking like 43% are answer number 1, 47 answer 2, and then about 10% number 3. So it gives you any kind of gauge.
That is awesome. I mean, that's a really great mix of people who are using a template and maybe are a little bit more beginning stage as an organization, and people who've really been working to adapt their website to the organization, and then people who are quite advanced and really using analytics and feedback to constantly improve their website for their members and supporters. So that's very exciting. It's great to hear we have a good mix.
And I'll go ahead and just share those results with you now. So I think you should all be able to see them.
Great. So I hope that's interesting information for everyone else as well. And it certainly helps me to speak a little bit to different tips that may help you as we move on through this. So, right. Awesome. So here we are. I'm Emily, and since we do have the videos enabled, so you can see that as well, the cameras. And this is Catherine. And Candace already sort of introduced me. So I am the content marketing manager at Elevation. I'm very interested in community building and behavioral psychology. I am also a nonprofit board member myself, and that is for Yale Women. And a little bit about Elevation, as Candace already mentioned, we're a full service digital agency. We specialize in nonprofits. And we've been working with nonprofits for more than 13 years, really focused on closing the digital gap between technology and nonprofits. So, Catherine, if you'd like to introduce
Sure.
yourself a little bit more.
Sure. Hi, I'm Catherine Boatwright. I'm the Director of Operations for National VOAD. VOAD stands for Voluntary Organizations Active in Disaster. I've been working with nonprofits for nearly 10 years and in disaster relief for about 8 years, and at National VOAD for about 5. So a good amount of experience with the organization. National VOAD itself is an association of nonprofits that specialize in disaster relief. So we represent about 70 national nonprofits that do this work, and then we also have chapters in all 56 state and territories that help do the coordination work after a disaster happens. And we've worked with Elevation very closely on the redesign of our national website, voad.org, and are now currently doing a redesign of all 56 of our chapter websites as well. So we'll talk a little bit about both of those.
Ambitious, right?
Hopefully.
Yes. So a quick overview of the presentation. These are the different topics we'll touch upon. And of course, we always have the chat available for Q&A, although we'll save the time at the end to address questions just to make sure that we get through everything, and that way as well, if there are any repeated questions, we can sort of group those together, try and address everyone's comments and concerns. So how do you create a website for your community's needs? And this is really the basis of this presentation. As nonprofits, everyone knows that everything is focused around your supporters, and you really need their collaboration to achieve all the things that you're going to do. So the website really needs to be focused around them and achieving their collaboration. So that happens with user groups. From a design perspective for websites, this is your first step in designing a website that will meet the needs of your community. So who are your new user groups? This is something that every nonprofit can do, and something that you could even start jotting down now if this is a new kind of exercise for you. Generally, user groups, you choose 3 to 5, maybe max 7. And these are literally just the people that are coming to your website to use it. And they're kind of you're grouping them by what their interests or their actions or activities may be. So that can include a couple of different factors. You do not want it to be something like donors. So you don't want it to be based around the end result of what you're hoping they'll do, subscribers, donors, volunteers, but rather thinking about them more fully as people, although still trying to identify kind of trends and similarities. So a donor is more of a desired outcome or action. And so that's why we want to stay away from kind of that idea. So we're thinking about who these people are. That it's specifically maybe life circumstance, perhaps family size, location, right? Age, gender identity. And then to help kind of flesh out the idea of who these people are, we give them a name, a role as well, like a job description or a role title. And that helps us to just remember that these are people and they are individuals. And so of course, there's gonna be a lot of different individual differences, but we can kind of group people into similar information that they're looking for and similar actions that they would be attracted to. And then the psychographics are the why these people do what they do, their interests, opinions, and activities, personality, values, attitudes towards life or your cause, motivation for interacting with your nonprofit, individual lifestyle. All of those things will impact people's preferences for when, where, and how they interact with your nonprofit. And that includes aspects of your nonprofit website. So you want to then connect this information about your users to who you are as an organization, thinking about your long-term goals, your short-term goals, and measuring those goals. So whether it's long-term goals, visibility, you want to appear more in searches related to your issue or cause, so it may be SEO. Short-term goals, immediate increase in conversions for donations or more social followers. Measuring those goals, maybe you're using Google Analytics. So Catherine hopefully can give us a little more background on VOED. So for you guys embarking on this process, what have been your long-term goals and short-term goals?
Sure. So this was a big project for us going through a redesign. And like most of you, we didn't have any internal knowledge or capacity for this. So just everyday people trying to figure it out. So long term, we wanted people to understand our mission and vision very clearly when they came to our website. As an association, it's just a little more complex than we deliver a service to X people group. So we want people to be able to see it clearly, to interact with it and get the information they wanted, and to also have a professional exterior to it. Our website was pretty outdated. We used the resources we had to make it look nice, and the same is true for our state sites as well. And so for those who are interacting with us for the long haul, which we hope that they would stay and become members, we wanted to be able to display our professionalism and our expertise. In the short term, we often have people who want to help after a disaster, and so we want them to be able to find their information really clearly and quickly. So that we'll see more on the internal pages what we did there, but really just so that it was clear to the average user. And as far as measuring those goals, we're hooked up to Google Analytics now, thanks to Elevation, and monitor the click-throughs and the additions. And, I can just tell you that since doing the redesign, we've increased, I think 3 times the unique visitors on a monthly basis that we did before. So just by having a fresh look, that alone did it for us. So.
That's awesome. I hadn't heard that particular number, so it's very exciting, very rewarding to hear that. So based on that information, knowing our user groups and also thinking about our organization's missions, we really now combine that, and we can sort of create an exercise for that. So we can write out the answers to who are the users, both the demographics and the psychographics. How do they get to your site? And that means not just physically, how do they navigate there, but also emotionally. What is compelling them to visit your site in this moment? First time they've ever been there, but also for a particular moment, particular need for recurring visitors and existing supporters. What are they trying to learn or do on your site? How do they prefer to complete that task, right? What's going to be easiest for them? And we can use a kind of simple format to help structure this, and just say, as a user, I want to do a certain action so that I can achieve my ultimate goal. And a little pro tip about that, as we write out these things, it's best if we can use language that would be familiar and comfortable to your community. So you might think about that and use that language to then incorporate into your CTAs and into your content on your website. So keep that in mind, trying to write in the voice of your user as well. So these are our VOED user personas for their affiliate sites, and Catherine's going to tell us a little bit more about their user groups.
Yes, thank you. So we were talking through, and Elevation really helped us think through this process about who would be coming. So first off, so as HR manager, Lucas wants guidance on how to start participating in disaster relief so he can create a company-wide volunteer effort in the wake of COVID. So often people will just Google disaster donate or volunteer or something along those lines, and this is someone that may not have a ton of industry knowledge, but they're probably in an area where they've been impacted, such as COVID or a hurricane, and they want to be involved. Now for VOAD, we're for organizations, not individuals, so that's something else that we had to make very clear, is that we're really geared towards nonprofit practitioners, not the general public. So, we wanted to make it clear on how his organization could get involved, where they could steer donations and volunteers after a disaster. This next one, as a program director, Alicia is looking to learn more about VOAD members so she can direct funding for future cross-state disasters. So this is the user that is a little more savvy, a little more understanding of the disaster industry, and has resources that she wants to put forward. So for this, it's really important to demonstrate our expertise, our partnerships, our professionalism, and really make sure that this is a place that she wants to keep invest her resources in. So less education and more about directing the action. And our next one on the next slide, so this is for the current VOAD member, someone who's already committed to VOAD. As fulfillment coordinator at a member organization, Brenda wants to find out what happened at past meetings, learn about upcoming events, and locate resources so she can stay up to date as a disaster relief professional. So Brenda is in, she understands the industry, and now she just needs information, and she needs it in a timely manner. So we wanted to be able to construct the site so that she could find documents, current updates on disasters, how to pay her dues, other things like that. So those were the three main groups that we looked at.
Right. And this is something that's going to be really tailored to the mission of your nonprofit organization. So just to give another example, because I know that sometimes it helps if you're coming from a different sector to look at it from another type of organization. If you're sort of a policy research center, so an advocacy, maybe social justice group, right? You may have a legislative staffer like Juan Ramos, who wants to find archived reports so that he can craft legislation. You may have a member of the press like Ann Jacobs, who wants to find contact information for possible interviews so that she can write a story. You may have an activist like Jasmine Roberts, who wants to get symbol talking points so that they can prepare for a presentation. And to help you do this exercise, if this is something that's new to you, we have a free user persona template, and you're welcome to go and download that for your use. Oops. I was going to, no, I can't do that. Okay, I'm presentation mode. I was hoping to pop it into the chat for you guys to make that a little bit easier to copy over, but I realized I can't do that in presentation mode. So, that link is there and available, and I know that CauseVox will be working to make these materials available after the presentations as well. So any resources that you see throughout this presentation, we will have a way for you to access them afterwards as well. So then from user groups to UX. So what is UX, user experience? You're going to be taking the information that you've gathered about your users and your community during the first process to then design the interaction experience that users have with your website. So this means how visitors navigate through the site, if they find what they're looking for, how they complete the tasks that they want to complete, how the interaction makes them feel. And I know that's still a little bit vague at this point, so I'll illustrate a little bit more. But this is a combination really of different best practices as well in terms of what people expect in a website, and also what helps them to easily identify and follow the sort of paths that you hope they will follow. So a well-designed UX mirrors your visitors' thought processes. It really keeps them in mind, and it's designed around them and what they might be there looking for, and guides them through your site using proper visual cues and CTAs. So here's a little illustration of what UX is. So UX is about making things very easy. It's sort of life hacks. It's the idea that when the best outcomes are easy to do, it just means that more people will do them and more frequently. So I kind of think of like a pill organizer, right? It helps you to remember to take pills. It's very clear. It's very easy to use. It's very clear how you're supposed to use it. Doesn't need a lot of explanation, and it just helps you to sort of take to follow the behaviors that you want to follow, right? And that's the idea of UX. And it's also sort of a set of guidelines as well. So if we think of reading a book, if you are an experienced reader, then you're very familiar with how a book format is laid out. That's something that you've developed and you're accustomed to over time after having been exposed to many books. So table of contents, you know how to read that, you know what information I'll give you, and it's something that you can use to then find what you're looking for in the book. And it's not something that is redesigned and looks totally different. You know, you don't, if you're reading a book in English, you don't read from you always read opening the cover, you know, from the left to the right. you know the table of contents is going to be at the beginning. If you're reading in a different language, it's going to be a different experience. But as an English reader, you can expect those things, and those help you to use a book, for example. So the impact of UX is that good UX builds trust and creates a positive experience. So it's great when something is familiar, if it's a tool and you know how to use it. So if you're accustomed to seeing a book laid out a certain way, you know, this is where the title is located. This is the size of the title font compared to the paragraph font, right? These are things that you expect from a book, and it trusts you, you know, it helps you to use that book and you feel more comfortable using it. So it's laying the foundation for a strong relationship. And it also helps to convert visitors effectively. When it's easier, when it's faster, when it's easier to understand, then it's saving your nonprofit money and time in terms of follow-up campaigns and extended nurturing, right? So you're not trying to draw those people back to your website or guide them to where you hope they will go with so much effort. A little sort of, you know, there's been a lot of research done in UX over the past 10 particularly years, but 20 plus years. This is something that's used in the private sector a huge amount. You know, it's how Amazon and Google and Netflix and all these other huge tech companies have grown so large. And so we want to sort of take the best examples of what those, you know, those companies have learned in terms of making websites really easy to use and really clear, and apply those to nonprofit organizations as well. And being unconventional with how you lay out your website, it will take users an average of 50% longer to find what they're looking for. So if something takes you twice as long to find the newsletter or the announcement or the event information, it's more frustrating, and you lose more people along the way. So there has, you know, and I'll share a list of resources at the end in terms of where this research comes from, and also where you can learn more. So the first steps to creating your website now are creating the sitemap. Then you're going to apply your user flows to the sitemap in order to develop wireframes. So what are all these terms, right? The sitemap is a hierarchical depiction of all of your website's pages. It's your information taxonomy. It's how you organize the content on your website. And that's based on what content needs you have. So that's why creating your user groups first really helps you to identify, okay, what's all the information that really should be there, because maybe it's not the same as what you currently have in terms of the information available. It helps you to identify and create this around your users. Then the user flows, that is step-by-step how your website visitors are going to move through your site so that they can easily find the information they need. And that includes you know, individual CTAs on each page. And then the wireframes are fleshing all that out. It's figuring out how the navigation will work in connection with your content, where it's going to be, where we have space for paragraphs, for writing, for graphics, for infographics, for photographs and video. So the basic sort of website structure that we're going to go more into depth today with in terms of those wireframes are the home page, the internal page, and the donation page. So those are the three major categories that are going to have kind of significant differences in how they should be laid out in order to make it easy for your users to navigate. And before we go into that, well, we'll go bit by bit, but I don't know if Catherine, you'd like to share anything about how you thought about your homepage, internal page designs and donation pages as you were creating them. Maybe it's easier to go, I don't know if you'd like to say that now, a little sort of overview, or if it'd be easier to go more in depth as we look at those pages.
Maybe as we go through, it may be easier. You know, I know you're about to talk about the homepage. If you want to go to that real quick, I can just say that, you know, for us, it was important to display what we're about. So, you know, a large banner image that displays some kind of action. We always do the most pressing response kind of as the first image that you'd see, a very clear navigation of what, how to get around. And then, you know, of course, our branding, we have orange in our logo. So instead of making the whole site orange, they did a great job of putting in just pops of color instead of the whole thing. But, she referenced CTA call to actions, and there's a few on this page that I think have made a really big difference that we wanted to be really clear to our user groups.
All right, and we'll go through those images now, so I'll give you a chance to explain those more in depth. A few general rules about the homepage. You have 7 seconds on average to make an impact, and this is your first impression that's really going to explain what you do as an organization. And then it should be a tasting menu of your website, sort of give a little bit of all the information that's going to be available there. And then it's representing visually the rest of the website. So I'll explain that a little bit more in depth. Here we are, it's a clearer image of the homepage. But before I go into that more in depth and we work our way down VOAD's homepage, I wanted to show a couple examples from some other organizations, since I know that people may be coming from vastly different sectors. So here's one example. This is Action Ministries. And they've decided to use, they have a fantastic video. So they decided to use this video that really illustrates the vision that they have and the mission that of their work. So it's very clear, and then they have just 3 CTAs for their 3 main user groups and what they're trying to accomplish, right? Then we have American Indian Services. And so this homepage does a fantastic job of using white space, which is sort of empty space, and that helps to direct your attention. So it's very clear where your attention is drawn to, and very striking on this page. And we also see that they use the CTA How You Can Help. So we'll see a couple of different variations for what text might be appropriate to your organization to include in that major CTA. So here's a few more examples. We have the American Brain Tumor Association, and this is a very large, complex organization. And so in order to make their site more digestible and not so overwhelming, they have 7 quite different user groups. They've created 2 CTAs for their different users right in that first banner. So they're immediately drawing the attention of patients and caregivers, so people who are probably coming first time to the website. And then they do have sections for researchers, for healthcare professionals that are farther down their homepage and in their navigation menu. So here's an example of Roots and Wings, which is a social service organization in New Jersey. And on their homepage, they have a call to action for their gala. And they probably decided based on analytics that this is one of their most visited pages. And so they want to make it really easy for people to come here. So that's where analytics can be really helpful in understanding your audience. And one thing that you do want to keep in mind, just a little side note on carousels, you want to be careful using them because they can sometimes hide information if people have to flip through to get to the information you want them to see. And they also present some accessibility issues, so you need to work in how you will program that appropriately. That doesn't mean, don't use carousels, it just means you need to do so thoughtfully. Preloaders, that's another way that is oftentimes overlooked, but can be really great for introducing your mission and also your nonprofit branding to your website. It's also a great user experience because if you have a website that's taking a little bit longer to load, you have a sudden jump in demand. Maybe there's an event that either you have one main event a year where a ton of people, you have a huge jump in traffic, or some outside news event causes a huge jump in traffic. Now people know that your website is functioning, they're not going to leave, and they know that it's just loading. Also great if you have rural users, or you have people who are users in the field. This way you're communicating to people that the website is loading, it's not that it's broken. And you can do just a simple logo as vaccinate your family, or this is from Action Ministries again. Instead of using their name, they're using a slogan, End Hunger. That's their mission, and reminding you of that. So a few pointers to sum it all up. Ways to engage your visitor in those first 7 seconds. You want to use photos or videos to catch people's eyes. You want to use white space. Don't overcrowd the front page. remember to think about the preloader content. That's something you can add, and emphasize your CTA, whatever that may be. So returning to examples from National VOED, here we have their logo, and that should always be something that's located in the upper left-hand corner of your website. People are 80% more likely to remember your logo if it's located in this location. Again, from all of that great user research that has been done in the past decade. Other components that should be here, your navigation bar, and that's based on your sitemap. Site search functionality, very, very helpful. So make sure that that's easy to find so people can use it. Social channels, right? Make those easy to find as well for people who prefer to receive content that way. Contact us. That's an important part of transparency. People want to know, where your organization is located, how to reach out to you. That needs to be easy to find as well. And then your most important CTA. And for National VOED, that is about their membership, right? Because that's who their primary audience is and what their tools and resources are directed towards. For many nonprofits, though, that would be the donate button. So it depends a little bit on your organization. And then a few more examples. If you have a hotline, you also want that to be front and center, easy to find, always visible, right? Language options as well, accessibility. And accessibility is hugely important, but also necessary, right? There have been some NGOs that have been sued for not being accessible, since websites are now considered part of public space. So this is an example of a free widget for WordPress called User Way that has lots of different accessibility options. So there are a lot of options out there, and a lot of people looking to help nonprofits ensure that they are accessible. So back to National VOED, and we see their homepage here, the rest of it. There are sections that are divided in the different sections mirror the navigation of the main menu, and they include a short snippet or taste of the content to accompany each CTA. So there's always something visual that's attractive and engaging, always a bit of text to explain a little bit more what that topic or the additional content may be about, and a CTA for that content, and cohesive branding to sort of pull it all together. So Catherine, I don't know if you want to share any background or in terms of this page and any of the thought that went into creating it.
Yeah, I would just say that, our user groups are pretty varied in their needs. So we try to consolidate all of the most important goals of those user groups into the homepage, so you could see who we are, what we do, if you wanted to get involved, how to do that, if you wanted information, how to do that. So, they did a really good job with the design of guiding your eye to kind of those different categories without it being cluttered. Because I think that's the challenge, is that you want to overfill, but making it concise and clear is really what makes it effective.
And I'm thinking back to the user groups that you mentioned earlier, and I think one of the interesting challenges that VOED particularly faced is this kind of tension between, you are a resource building organization where a lot of it is about long-term institutional building in terms of people's knowledge base and resources for being in contact and so forth. And you also have a very urgent need at the same time. When there's a disaster that occurs, people need to connect immediately. So that's sort of different, ways of using the website and different content, finding the most important, relevant, urgent information, but also the depth of all of the information in terms of all the resources that are available. And I know that one of the ways that we worked with you to do that was kind of this first section here, join the movement, for that type of user that you mentioned that does a Google search wanting to help in response to disaster and is looking for ways to volunteer or donate, and to make sure that you don't lose that website visitor, that you can appropriately direct them, but making it clear that it's a website that is directed towards nonprofit professionals and other organizations.
Right. Yeah, it's a challenging balance.
Yeah, but I think that you guys have done a fantastic job of kind of thinking through who your public is, and I'm really glad to hear that the results have been really positive in terms of how people are engaging with the new site. So.
Yeah, and I'll just say quickly, like we've seen increases on our click-throughs across the board. More people click to our social through the website. I'll get to this a little bit later, but you know, we've seen kind of we've seen a 25% increase to our site overall, and then to those unique call to action pages of volunteer donate the same amount. So we're really happy with the response that we've.
That's wonderful to hear those numbers. It's really rewarding.
Yeah, you didn't know all this. I was saving it for today.
I didn't. So as we go more into this page, and now we're going to take a look at the current project that VOAD is working on, which is the sites for their different chapters. And this kind of illustrates as well that connection of the idea that your homepage is a tasting menu. So it kind of gives a little snippet, a preview of all of the other information that's available on the website. So you get a visual representation of that. So I don't know if there's anything you'd like to add about any sections in particular, Catherine.
Yeah, I think what's important about our chapter sites is that it's really geared more towards the community-based practitioner or individual that Googles how to get involved. So there's a pretty heavy education component here about what we are and what we do. So as soon as you get below the fold, that's what you see here. We wanted to make sure that it was very clear and approachable for those who didn't have industry knowledge.
Awesome. All right, so then we see this is the next section. So it's like as if we were scrolling down the home page.
Right, same thing, you know, for the individual that just kind of Googles how to get involved. We wanted to be very clear. I think the use of icons was awesome here. So it wasn't cluttered or hard to find. And, you know, as you scroll, similar to the National VOAD website, trying to cater to the different user groups and their needs. And
so
the resources. Yes, sorry. Then the resources, that's more towards the person that's already involved, that wants information and needs it quickly. And so, you know, the navigation bar on the state sites is more condensed, which is good. It's more clear cut. National, you know, we're catering to a much larger community. And so I think the simplicity on the state sites is going to be a huge value.
And then we have news updates.
Right, in the news, any updates regarding current disaster events or member meetings or things that they may want to highlight. This will function much like a blog, that whatever news the state wants to amplify, it's easily found both on the navigation bar and then at the bottom of the homepage. So being able to link to all those different categories on the homepage is, I think, makes a huge difference.
And to clarify for our audience, because there are a few questions about this, but there's a lot of filler text in this design right now because this is not yet a live website. It's the project that VOAD is working on currently. Right. So this is actually the mock-up. It is the designer's preview. This site is not yet live.
Yes,
and then
in the middle
at the end of all of this, in the midst. And then at the end of each homepage, you have your footer. And so the first tip for a strong footer is to use that space to convert your visitors. This is a great space for your newsletter subscriptions because people have now seen some content. They're ready to share their contact information versus having it up at the top when they haven't yet visited those resources. They're not ready to convert yet. So this is the ideal location to have a CTA like this. And another tip to include your credentials. So if you're an organization that has, you know, some certifications, this is a great place where you can include that. You may also want to include information like your tax identification number, since that's a commonly searched for piece of information. So that's an example from American Brain Tumor Association. So the About Us page, the next really sort of second most important page on every nonprofit website. This is an essential page because it's the one thing that nonprofits really need, is to build trust with their potential or future supporters, right? So this is a potential member or a potential donor, and they stumble upon your site and they're interested by your homepage and your mission. They really want to check out who you are before they're ready to share their contact information or pull out their wallets. So they need time to understand you, your mission, your purpose. If you're a newer nonprofit, this may be a less complex page, and all of this information can sort of fit on one page. And as you build, you may need to include more information and switch to sort of an About Us menu, which is what we will see from VOAD. So the About Us statement, we always recommend that this be prominently placed above the fold on the About Us main page. Other components like mission, vision, value statements can all be bumped to a secondary page. You want just really brief, digestible content, that first paragraph, that explains who you are. And to write for an audience that knows absolutely nothing about who you are, what you do. This is really important, you know, recruit a friend sort of who doesn't know about your organization, and see if the statement works for them, because it can be very difficult to write this statement as someone within the organization and make it intelligible for someone who's never heard of you before. If you have a more complicated mission, you can explain it in detail further on and kind of explain how you work and the goals. And this is also a great, the About Us menu is a great place to include somewhere your story of your nonprofit. You know, it allows visitors to relate to your journey. Human beings, we're naturally drawn to storytelling. We're more, you know, that compels us. And so talking about challenges, about inspiration, the first steps, how you arrived to where you are now, that storytelling is actually much more appealing to your audience. And, you know, something that includes photographs as well. So then, Catherine, I don't know if you want to explain a little bit more the other parts that went into your About Us menu and the decisions behind including those.
Sure. So I know when I'm checking out a nonprofit for the first time, this is the first page that I go to. As Emily said, super important to talk about your mission and vision up front. We link to our strategic plan because we think it's an important point of transparency, and also proves that we take our mission and vision seriously and have a plan on how to move towards those things. So we have a whole page dedicated to that, and you know, we're committed to doing a strategic plan every 5 years or so, and we'll continue to update this information there. And it's also something that our members are really involved in as well, and want to know that if this is a place that I'm going to commit myself to, they want to see those tangible steps. Leadership, I think that's another point of transparency and professionalism to display. You know, we also are a network, so people really like to see, you know, the representatives from different organizations and how they're involved. And then, of course, you know, the FAQ, not everyone does this, but we, you know, receive a lot of questions over and over again. So this is our way of trying to capture those and hopefully eliminate, you know, questions to our staff that we receive over and over again. So just trying to condense the most important information about us as an organization.
Additional About Us content, if you have other types of information that you may feel like you need. This is a great example from the American Brain Tumor Association on the left, where it's very digestible, right? So you want to keep content brief, quick overviews or introductions, so people can easily decide whether that's the content that they're looking to read more about. You might include financials, for example. That may include your budget information for transparency. You may also include your nonprofit, your Form 990, which is required by the IRS for all 501c organizations. So that's a great place, since that has to be publicly published anyways. This is a great place to include it. Some donors look for that. And then, mission, vision, and core values. Those three can oftentimes go together. So we see that on Alzheimer.org's site, that this is a great way to combine that as well. Because the vision, mission, and core values are so important, it's great that those, as Catherine mentioned, they're oftentimes kind of the first things that people look for. So those should be easy to find, and some people even include a snippet of them, or a quote, or a card, a brief bit of information about that on their homepage. And if you have a press section, if you've been in the headlines quite a bit, you might want to include that here as well. Just sort of keeping in mind that it's not a necessary part of an organization. If you don't have recent headlines, then people are oftentimes spending more time looking at the dates than they are looking at the content. And so it may be better to be highlighting information about your impact, your programming, showing videos, showing photos, your social media as well, to show that recent activity of your organization and the impact, as opposed to press. Because if those headlines are dated, that can actually be less helpful. So then, in terms of the next inner page that all nonprofits include is the impact page. So this is a very important page to have as well. So a little bit from Catherine about what National VOAD has included in their impact page and why.
Sure. So our impact is pretty challenging to measure, and we, pull this report every 3 years, and we thought that these stats were amplified our scope and our mission as in a simplest way possible, and there was a way to link to more information if you wanted it. I also think, again, the use of icons is really critical in kind of drawing people in and paying attention to the information. But I think across the board, all of our user groups, that's another thing, what do people care about, what is pertinent, because someone that's an invested industry person may want to see a different stat than the average person who's Googling our organization. So I think, again, the idea of pulling back instead of over communicating is sometimes what we're trying to balance.
And then I also pulled this example from Roots and Wings, New Jersey, because I think sometimes some organizations are a little overwhelmed by where they're going to get all of this content and how they're going to create it. And to just sort of remind people that it's great to recycle content. So if you create a fantastic infographic that you've been using for campaigns, for, for social media, for email, for, print information, if it's a really great infographic, that's something that can live on your impact page. It's something that can be used in your annual report. It's something you can create share buttons for great content like this, so that people who are supporters and want to spread the word and advocate have great pieces of content, little snippets that they can share themselves. So thinking about ways that you can reuse the most powerful content you have in different ways. And then in this page, these are little snippets about impact from home pages. So as we mentioned before, your homepage is really a tasting menu. So you want to see a little preview of each bit of information. So we have a snippet from National VOAD on top, right, which has a testimonial, which are fantastic. Video testimonials are very compelling. And then a little brief bit of information, and then the example from Roots and Wings below that. So the donation page, very important for all nonprofits as well. So going into that a little bit more, first, to remember, take a step back and remember that donation does not start on your donation page. So donation is an experience. People have to get to the place where they're ready to donate. And there's a lot of steps that happen before that. So the first thing you want to sort of think about is that, or remember, is that if donation is your primary CTA, then you want it to be up in this corner, right? And so it really depends on your organization. And then, although you do have this button up here, you still want to be strategic about how and where you ask for donations. So we saw that with National VOAD in terms of they do have these visitors that come through and they want to direct them appropriately. So they've located that donate button in a place that makes sense for their types of users. You know, your user may be browsing your impact page, and they may be inspired to make a donation then. So make that easy for them. Make sure that there's a clear CTA there as well. The first rule about donation pages is mobile first, the layout of this page. So last year, mobile giving increased 50%, while desktop giving decreased, actually decreased 10%. So this is the view that most people are looking at. It is the most important layout. 41% of donors also give in response to tragedies like natural disasters. So think about where people are when they learn about these issues, right? If there's something happening in the news and they want to donate to a cause, they want to donate in response to a natural disaster, they're more likely to be on their phones and want to be Googling or looking in that moment for how they can help. And people are highly motivated once they click donate CTA. So something that organizations don't always think about is, do you want to use this moment to communicate some sort of information? What do you want people to know at this moment? And so National Vote has done something interesting here that Catherine will explain for us. Once you click on their donate button, this is what you see.
Sure. So we're a little unique, as in, we don't have a donate button on our homepage. We don't collect donations from the general public. Instead, we redirect them to our members, which are the nonprofits that have signed on to our association. So first, we give a point of education on how to best donate after a disaster. And then we direct them to our membership page so they can donate there. And what's important here is that there's a common problem after a disaster, which has nothing to do with user experience, just that people like to send stuff after a disaster instead of cash, and it can be a real problem on the local community. So it was important for our page to educate on good disaster giving, and then, as Emily said, just make a clear call to action on this page on where we want their funds to go.
Right, so to show that this is something that can be applied in different sectors, we see a similar example from the Humane Society of Sarasota County. So HSSC, when you click on their Give button on their homepage, they take you to an explanation of their monthly giving program. So this is a fantastic thing to do because that is their preference for giving, right? It's important to them to have that sustainability. So they explain why monthly giving is so important, and then they take you to the donation form. This works because people who are navigating your website already and choose that sort of donate button or give button, they're highly motivated at that moment. So why not convert them to a recurring donor? It's important to still have another link available, another way of having a one-time donation form, and they do have that here. They have a link to that, which is much smaller, but that way for certain select campaigns, outbound campaigns, or people who are returning to the website and already know that they want to give again, they still have a way to just sort of get straight to the form where they can do a one-time donation. But it's really educating at the moment that people are most excited about giving, as opposed to trying to convert them again later, which just ends up being more work and more resources from your nonprofit. So,
sorry to interrupt, Emily, but I think we have to wrap.
Yes. So thank you for reminding of that here. So kind of wrapping up a couple of other key points here. What else works? So this is a great example of embedding content within your page so that people do not leave the donate page if they want to learn more. So if you want, you include little snippets, include testimonials, include videos without leaving that page. Almost working in that we saw great information. I'll flip back again here. If you can connect a giving amount to a material impact, that's highly motivating for donors. But you do want to be a little bit careful about how you do that, just remembering that mobile first, right? If there's a lot of text or information at one point, it becomes really hard to read or navigate or to understand what you're looking at on mobile. So you want to break that content into different chunks so that it's really clear, you know, minimize the text, try and write as concisely as possible. And then you have a really clear form. So this is a great example where this is a very concise form. They're not competing CTAs. The thing that I'm seeing is next, even if I want more information on other ways to give, that's really, you know, only there for people who are really looking for that information. My attention is all up here and on the next button. So I'll really be engaged with that. Another example of a great simple form, default option is recurring, you know, monthly recurring, and you can break up the different bits of information that you're looking for in order to make the donation, make it seem like it's an easier process for your users. And you definitely have a secure connection here. So you see that with HTTPS or the little lock, so people that know their credit card information is safe. A little bit about donation imagery, which I'll pass over, but there's some more tips here as well. Best practices for your thank you page and email follow-up. It's really important to have this. It will help with your analytics later on, but also because the reason people give is for that feeling of that they're making a difference, and that you want to really, you know, increase that experience for them so that they want to give again. So make sure that the thank you page, you know, reaffirms what is going to be accomplished with their donation, how it's helpful, that there's an email follow-up so people know that their donation was received. And then here's a few additional freemium resources if you want to learn more about UX, learn about more tools that can help you optimize your website and help have more conversions and more users. These are great tools that are free at the basic features level. And then thank you for joining us. So here's our contact information if you'd like to reach out to Catherine or myself with any questions. And also we are offering a site evaluation program. So if you'd like for your website to be checked out by someone who specializes in nonprofit website design, you can go to this link, share your information. We'd be happy to give a quick evaluation and give you some pointers on what you can be doing with your site. And that is the end of our presentation today.